Went swinging over to my tie-in points. The tree smashed me. Pretty brutal swing. Hurt pretty good. Dropped my chainsaw. Now I've got a 60-foot log hanging from my waist and I'm tied in high. So basically being ripped in half and stretched into, it sounded like gunshots going off. You could hear the top snapping, and it's nothing short of a miracle that I made it out of that without snapping the top and coming crashing to the ground. So I'm gonna give you 5 things that I learned from this catastrophe, from this horror story of mine nearly, a decade and a half ago. Hey, welcome back, guys. Just wanted to share a special story today on one of my most catastrophic, scary horror stories as a tree climber since I've been in the industry decade and a half, almost two decades now, believe it or not. If you've been in the industry any amount of time, you know that we are in one of the most dangerous industries that there is. And if you've been in the industry any amount of time, you've probably had some sort of, close call. Maybe a top didn't go the way you wanted it to or expected it to. Ground guy didn't let the piece run as fast and shook you around, or peeled past your safety, or a tree was compromised more than expected, or something along those lines, because it is so dangerous. And so I just wanted to share my story, basically what I learned from it, what went wrong, what could have been prevented. My whole goal is really to promote safety within the industry, especially towards, a new up and coming climber, so you don't have to learn the hard way like I did. And go from there. But I hope you guys learned something. Enjoy the horror story and just kind of recalling this tragic event. And hopefully it will help promote the safety within the industry, the safety culture, and we all go home at the end of the day to our families. That's the end goal. So let's get into it. All right, so starting from the beginning, I just started climbing. I got the saddle, got some gear. I got a little cheap chainsaw somebody gave me, probably a Craftsman, I think, from Sears. And so I'm out, picking up little side work. And for a friend of mine, they had a tree that they wanted taken down, big codon maple with, I think, 3 or 4 stems on it. Pretty easy, it could just bomb everything. So I took that on, went to help them out one day. As a disclaimer, in this point in my tree climbing career, I've had a few trees under my belt and I had the gear, just enough. If you're a climber, you could probably relate to the fact that right when you get gear, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm going to start doing side work and stuff like that. And, I want to encourage you to keep it slow. Find a mentor that's going to help train you and teach you how to do things, safely, efficiently, and teach you to do it the right way. And don't rush into things too fast. The industry is too dangerous to take those types of, uneducated risks like I do, in this story. So I go out, tackle this tree with, just my climbing gear, climbing rope, my chainsaw, no other help, nobody on the ground. Everyone at the house is at work. They're gone. And we're way out in the country at this little small town in Ohio. And I'm climbing. There's 4 stems. I'm tied into this far one. I pieced down 2 other ones. I'm on the last one way over here. I'm tied in over here, and I've got my safety around this stem. I'm about, 20 feet away or so, give or take. It's hard to recall, but I was far. And I'm making a break cut, just working this stem down. I've got my safety on, tied in over here, safety on here. It was unfortunate. I went to make a break cut, and I guess that force ended up causing that stem, that entire 60-foot stem, to break off at the base because it was so rotted. Kind of one of those signature things of codon maples that I didn't know at the time. So it broke at the base. I dropped my chainsaw, didn't have it on a lanyard. Went swinging over to my tie-in points. The tree smashed me in between the place I was tied in. Pretty brutal swing, hurt pretty good. Dropped my chainsaw. Now I've got a 60-foot log hanging from my waist and I'm tied in high. So basically being ripped in half and stretched in 2. I couldn't take my safety off because it tightened under tension. I've got a huge log hanging from me, and my climbing knot was also super duper tight with all that weight. There was so much weight, actually. I was tied in so high it sounded like gunshots going off. You could hear the top snapping, and it's nothing short of a miracle that I made it out of that without snapping the top and coming crashing to the ground. So didn't have a handsaw, didn't have a chainsaw, couldn't cut the lanyard. I'm stuck, no cell phone. In panic mode, I scream. I'm yelling for a few minutes before I kind of lose air, oxygen. The neighbor lady, she comes outside. She saw me. She called the police and said, hey, there's a boy stuck in a tree next door. And she didn't speak much English. And that's basically, she conveyed someone stuck in a tree. And this town was so small that they didn't have a true fire department or police department. It was all volunteer. So a volunteer fire department comes out. Half an hour later, I'm still stuck in the tree. You hear cracking and popping. They come out with a little pickup truck and a 10-foot ladder. See me way up, 60 feet up, and realize, okay, this ain't gonna cut it. So they had to call the neighboring fire department to bring over their big ladder truck and fire truck, the works. That took another half hour. Baja through the neighbor's yard. Pretty sure they got stuck. It was intense. At this point, they make it up to where I'm at. I'm barely conscious because, the adrenaline, the panic, I'm being squeezed and ripped in half. I've got a lot of pressure on my lungs, my ribs, because my climbing gear, all these things, and just a mess. They get to me. They strap me up to their bucket. They cut my safety. They strapped the chain off so it didn't fall all crazy. So they got me. I spent some time and, just kind of getting analyzed at the hospital. It's fine. It could have been so much worse, and honestly, nothing short of incredible miracle that I made it to climb after that. So that's really the whole reason I'm trying to share the story, is because I want others to see the mistakes I made in my transparency and see how I've adjusted and adapted so that I can be safer. And because at the end of the day, it was preventable. And there were so many different things I could have done differently, which attributes to the way that I climb and approach each job today. All right, so I'm gonna give you 5 things that I learned from this catastrophe, from this horror story of mine nearly, a decade and a half ago. And so the first thing that I learned, or that I did wrong, was I didn't do a pre-climb inspection. And this was before I even knew. I mean, I climb a tree and, the boss tells me, hey, this is the tree to climb, go climb it. Every tree was just a tree to me. I didn't know, hey, approach things with caution and assess the situation and the circumstances and the health of the tree, the condition, the location. I didn't do these pre-climb inspections. And so sometimes, complacency kicks in for us. Even if you've been climbing for a decade or, 40 years, whatever it may be, you might just look at a tree and just jump into it and say, hey, I've climbed 1,000 trees at this point. I don't need to do a pre-climb inspection. I can't stress it enough. Pre-climb inspection, you might notice cracks, things like that, splits or compromised tree structure, which is super, super important. Going along with the pre-climb inspection, I also failed because I was by myself. I didn't have anybody with me, and so maybe I failed the pre-climb inspection, but I'm up in the top. And my groundsman notices, this is shifting, or this is starting to crack, or they could hear something I didn't hear, or see something I didn't see. And even if they didn't, if the accident happened, they could have called for help, or they could have performed an aerial rescue, so many different things. So I can't encourage you enough not to be out doing tree work alone. It's incredibly dangerous. So many, unrecognizable factors sometimes. It could be compromised much more than we even see. So climb safe, keep somebody with you. I mean, I wreck climb sometimes by myself, but even then, if you're gonna be doing aerial work, dangerous cutting and things, you never know. And so I encourage you to have somebody with you too. All right, the third thing that I learned from that accident was climb with a cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone. I'm pretty sure during that time, it was before everyone in the world had an iPhone or something, basically attached to the hip. I had, I'm pretty sure, a prepaid phone. So if you ever had one of those phones, you know that those minutes were like gold. It was like $1 a text or something like that. It was pretty crazy. So I didn't climb with that. I'm not using it very much. But now I climb with a cell phone every single time I climb, no matter what. If something happens, I want to be able to make a call. If I see something on the ground, emergency happens, or if someone needs to get a hold of me, I have my phone on me at all times, just in case of that emergency. Moving on to the fourth and fifth thing that kind of go hand in hand with each other. The mistake that I made was I didn't have a handsaw on me. And you might have been thinking this whole story, like, why didn't you cut your safety lanyard to drop the log so then you could descend safely? That would have been a great idea had I climbed with a handsaw. Well, I didn't have a handsaw. A handsaw is so beneficial in so many ways in climbing. It's got tons of benefits. And, I chose not to have it on my saddle because of the small inconvenience or weight, whatever it is. So climbing with a handsaw can not only benefit you in your pruning and your removal, but could also save your life, in a tragic circumstance like this. My fifth and last thing that I learned was to climb with a lanyard or a tether on your chainsaw. So that was the mistake I made. I just had my chainsaw just free holding it, and I would clip it to, just a clip on my saddle. So when I was cutting and it broke at the base, I dropped my chainsaw and I had nothing on me to cut any rope or cut me free. And so I climbed with a recoil stretch, full reach lanyard on my chainsaw. So in case I drop it or something, it's still connected to me and I don't, drop it. So climb with some type of rope, a tether, a lanyard, something on your chainsaw. That way you don't lose that. Well, thanks again, guys, for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed my tree climbing horror story, and I hope it never happens to any of you, especially to those new climbers out there. I hope you're able to learn from my mistakes and implement these things so that every day you can go home to your family safe and sound. And that's what this is. It's to promote safety culture within the industry. And I didn't grow up and get introduced into a safe industry when I started out, and so I want to try to bring awareness to certain things that can be prevented, and we could all enjoy this awesome industry of arboriculture. So appreciate you watching, and talk to you soon.